Perfect. So, welcome back to the Lift Your Life podcast. I hope you are all doing good. So, I finally got a guest on, and I've actually got a line up of guests scheduled. So, a few weeks ago, we had Claire on, who's one of my clients. A few weeks before that, we had Karen on, and I want to make these little client hot seats more of a thing now, because as I was saying to Emily, who is today's guest, before this podcast started, I think it's great hearing mine and Laura's stories and our experiences, but I think a lot of you will relate and resonate to the girls that we work with more. You may be in a similar position to them. So we just want to let them share their stories with their health and fitness journeys, where they've got to, where they're at this moment in time, and hear from their experiences too, to shed some light on things maybe that you don't want to do, hear from their mistakes, and just have someone that you can relate to. So, Emily, that really fun question that everyone hates, but give the people a little introduction about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do, any cool fun facts that people who don't know you might want to know about. I know it's a horrible question, isn't it? So tell me something about yourself, and you're like, don't ask me that. That's such a horrible question.
Yeah. I'm Emily. I live in Bradford, so I live like 10 minutes away from Lucy.
Yes.
Funnily enough, we went to the same school. Different years though. I'm slightly older.
Yeah.
So my full-time job is an IT manager, so the majority of my time is sat behind a desk, so it's not very active at all. Fun fact, I do pole fitness. Well, I haven't been for a while as I've been so busy, but I do try. But yeah, that's me.
Amazing. Yeah, the fun fact is I actually didn't know until the other day that me and Emily went to the same school. I added her on Facebook. We've reached that point of we're Facebook friends now, so it's official. And Emily's like, "Did you got salts?" Like, yeah. I was like, "Oh, small world. It is a small world." But fun fact for everyone listening to the podcast: Emily is actually not one of my clients. At Lift Your Life, we're a team, we're a family. I treat Laura's clients like my own. Everyone's my baby. Everyone's my friend. But she's actually one of Laura's clients. However, I wanted to get Emily on to discuss her story, what she's done, where she's got to, and how she's where she is today. So, Emily, let's go way back. Throwback Thursday. It's actually Wednesday, but where did your health and fitness journey begin? So, when did you start doing anything in relation to health, fitness, training?
It probably started back when I turned 18. I actually joined Slimming World.
My favourite, as everyone knows.
Yeah, I actually joined Slimming World with my grandma, because she still believes in it, bless her, but I think it's a generation thing. But she was actually a consultant, so we went to a different class, so she wasn't the consultant where I went. We just did that, and that's kind of, I'm trying to think of the word. I was there for about a year, and it was an experience, to say. It was definitely completely different to what I'm doing now.
Well, let's delve into that then. So, as everyone who listens to this podcast knows, I'm not the biggest Slimming World fan. However, I like to take a very neutral perspective of things. So, what about Slimming World? So, why did you join first and foremost? What was going on in your life? What things did you take from it in terms of like the positives? What were the good things about your experience there, if any?
It was being more mindful about eating was a positive experience. The only reason why I joined is so I've danced from way back when I was 3 years old, right up until I was like 16, 17. And then when I quit dancing and turned 18, obviously alcohol, going out every weekend, it just went to pot really. Started putting weight on and things and felt a bit self-conscious, and obviously being a dancer, from being quite athletic and quite slim to then being quite curvy, I was just like, oh my gosh. So yeah, that's why I joined Slimming World. But to be fair, it was more about mindful eating. So like, there was certainly a lot more negatives than positives. Um, so like choosing different foods over something else. So like having like just little swaps. So like light mayo compared to normal mayo, light
Yeah,
cheese compared to normal cheese. Just the little things like that. But the whole thin thing, it's like looking back at it now, it blows my mind. Like an
yeah,
avocado, you had to sin, but it's healthy fat. So I was like, there's not that many calories in half an avocado, to be honest. And like you could eat as many potatoes as you want. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure there's more calories in a load of potatoes than there is half an avocado.
absolutely. Yeah, no, 100%. So obviously you've been to Slimming World for about a year.
Yeah.
How did you get on though from the perspective of actually fat loss in that time? Because a year is quite a decent amount of time, really. So how did you get on over that year?
So I did lose a lot of weight. So I pretty much got back to how I was before. And then I stopped going because I'd hit a point where I just wasn't moving anymore. And they were like, oh no, you need to get to this target and you need pairs. I'm like, nah, I can't be asked for that. I'm not doing that. So I quit and I kind of took on some of the stuff from Slimming World and tried to do it on my own.
Yeah.
And tried to do that for a couple of years. And it just, to be fair, it turned into an eating disorder. Like the way I would look at some food, like it was ridiculous. It's taken me a long time to get over the fear of eating certain food that Slimming World has given me.
Yeah. Can you give some examples of like just for people listening? Because I have so many people coming to me on consultation calls, and I'm not sure if we discussed this on ours, and we talk about like past diet experience, and they'll talk about Slimming World, and they'll talk about the fact that certain foods are demonized and their perception of certain foods is completely skewed. So can you remember any sort of memories of certain foods or occasions where you would be looking at it and be thinking, I'm just feeling these like negative emotions because of what you had at Slimming World?
So I absolutely love smoothies. This still riles me up, but I love smoothies. And obviously all fruit is free on Slimming World, but as soon as you blend it, you have to thin it. But I was like, aren't you technically blending that in your mouth? I stopped having smoothies. And when I did start to have them again, I was like, oh gosh, I bet there's lots of sugar in this. And I'd drink it and I'd feel guilty about drinking it, but I'm like, hang on a minute. It's full of vitamins. It's healthy food. It's not like it's a massive, gigantic bar of chocolate. That fair enough, if I ate the entire thing, I would feel guilty eating that. But just like a smoothie of all things, it just didn't make sense.
And this is the problem I have with it. I think having an understanding of nutrition that Slimming World creates is pretty good. But what it does is it creates these warped perceptions of food, and that's the issue I have. It's not a understanding that this is more nutrient dense, so I should have this in moderation. It's creating like complete distortions of what the reality is of food. Like you were saying, you can go and smash a kilo of potatoes and that's fine, but you can't blend your fruit because that's not allowed. And a kilo of potatoes is allowed, but you've got to account for a small amount of avocado. It's like it's very illogical, and that's the main issue that I have with it, is the lack of logic. And like you said, then you get left with these very, very distorted perceptions of food that just aren't reality. The avocado one's huge. Like I had a client previously who was like petrified, and we had to actually spend an entire month like hyping her up to have an avocado to realize, you know what, you can have an avocado as part of your daily calories, and guess what, you'll be all right. And it's the same with you. So spent some time with a very negative relationship with food because of what happened at Slimming. No, we don't just want to call it Slimming World and say they're trash, but they are. But you had that negative experience with the diet club. We won't name names because, you know, data protection and that. However, you then weren't feeling great. So what happened next? So it'd been a couple of years. You'd obviously lost that weight, then realised your relationship probably wasn't in the best place. What was the next step and stage for you?
So as I said, it was like on and off for a couple of years, like trying to do it on my own.
Yeah.
I did try and do a personal trainer course to try and educate myself a bit more, but I didn't follow through with it. I was just like, I can't do this. So I think it was just quite a long time actually. So it was up until the first lockdown when I was just on my own, trying different things, trying to go to the gym, didn't have a clue what I was doing, and I was just like, oh, no, I can't do it. So I'd buy like DVDs to do at home. But then obviously during lockdown, I didn't do anything. I didn't leave the house. So I was just like starting to put the weight back on. And there was actually a girl that I followed at the time, and she was writing plans for people at home. So I ended up getting like a workout plan, just a workout plan. So like food was completely out of the question. So I followed this workout plan, tried to be a bit more mindful of eating, but I wasn't tracking. I did lose a little bit of weight, but not much. And I actually followed Laura shortly after, and I've been following Laura for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And then I kept seeing loads of people popping up saying, no, they're doing online coaching, you can do this, and this, they give you calories. I was like, oh, brilliant, I can do it, I'll try that. So I eventually got an online coach a couple of months later. And it was kind of like, the experience was different. So it was like, here's your calories, there's your workout, off you go. And then that were it. And I'm like, okay. I barely spoke to them kind of thing as well. So I was just like, oh, all right then. And when you like have little like slip ups, they're like, oh, I've gone over my calories a little bit too much. My mind back then it was like, oh, sod it, I'll just carry on and I'd binge basically. And I'd get stuck at the same weight for the same time for ages, and it just wasn't budging. So then I gave that up and tried it again on my own, and it just went terrible again. And then I eventually saw that Laura started doing the coaching with yourself. But at the time, I think it was more of an experience thing. I was like, oh my gosh, what happens if I do it? And it's just the same thing all over again. But then I got to obviously I've been with Laura for about nearly 2 months now. And it got to a point just before I'd messaged you. I like looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, oh my God, you're huge. Let's do something about it. Like it was like more like a mental thing as well. I was just like ashamed, like looking back to how I was before, and I was like, oh my God. So then I eventually took the courage to sign up with Laura, and honestly, it's been the best experience I've had so far. Like, I'm not being paid to say this.
I'm not like going, come on, things. I'm all like, no, genuinely. Emily actually came to our Christmas get together on the weekend. It was lovely, and she really had the most wonderful, positive things to say about Laura, and it was absolutely incredible. So this is not to, big up our services, but it'd be just interesting to hear about what's been different this time round, because I hear it again, not just from people who come work with us, but from just friends and other people who go and work with PTs, online coaches, and the experience they get, in my opinion, is just wrong. Because I remember when on Christmas on the meal, you were basically saying, I actually get to speak to Laura, and I was like, yeah, that's like a non-negotiable basic standard for ourselves. Like we communicate with you, and I just find it bizarre that people like that, because people want to just take your money and run off and not do anything. But what has been different about this time around, and what is helpful about that? What should people be looking for when they do maybe want to work with someone? And how can you find out if someone is actually going to be helpful? What are like the red flags? Because before, when you worked with this online coach, what did you know them? Did you just kind of see that they were doing it and just took the bullet? Did you do any research? What was different this time around?
So obviously I followed Laura for a few years now, and she's always been 100%. So like her photos, her before and after photos are completely like mind blown kind of thing. And she's just always smiling, and I've just followed her for so long, so I'm like, oh yeah, Laura's posted, so I'll check. But the first coach was somebody that I didn't really follow for that long. I was just like the first person I kind of saw. And I know that since I follow a lot of like fitness influencers, like people who are advertising online coaching, and I've had a lot of people just randomly message me out of nowhere saying, "Oh, I've got an online coaching space. Do you want to do this, and this?" And they've like literally just followed me. I'm like, that's a red flag right there, because they're like, "Oh, I've had a look at your profile," and I'm like, my profile has like 6 pages. Like, what are you getting from this? Um, so yeah, I'd say like red flags if people just message you out of the blue. It's just like straight after following you. It's just like they're clearly just out trying to get money.
Absolutely. Especially if the first thing they're saying is like, "Hi, thanks for follow. Buy my program." It's like,
yeah,
it's not you.
yeah, and a lot of them are from America for some reason. I think one girl said she was like, "Oh yeah, it's $600 a month," and I was like, "What? What are you doing?"
I don't use that money. I don't use that monopoly money. Thank you very much.
Yeah. But I would, if it's for people who are still deciding whether to go for like an online coach, I would definitely like do research, like see how many people are out there. You can tell by like people's Instagram profiles the kind of person that they are. So like yourself and Laura, you're 100%, you're like clear, is like no BS kind of thing. It's just there. But then you see other people, it's like, oh, this is what I look like when I wake up, and I'm like,
no,
I bet you don't. No, you don't.
Absolutely not. Horrendous. Amazing. So I know you've only been working with Laura a few months now. But how do you feel like things are different? How do you feel like you're progressing? Because obviously we do things very, very differently to well, we don't do anything remotely similar to Slimming World in any shape or form. Absolutely not. But in terms of coaching, the one thing that we probably do quite different is that we don't have like a one size fits all approach. So people often ask us things like, "Oh, so do you just do gym workouts? Or how do I do my nutrition? Is it a meal plan?" And I always say to people, well, based off your consultation, based off where you're at, based off what you enjoy doing, that's how we're going to do things. So I actually don't really know much about what's going on with you and Laura. I just kind of trust Laura, trust her. She could be completely destroying Emily, but I don't think Emily would be on this call if that was the case. So what is different with your approach to like Slimming World and the other coaches with Laura, and how is this working better for you? And like, you know, what are you doing? How is it working well for yourself?
So it's definitely been difficult in the past couple of months in terms of my mental health. So getting on top of that, just getting a solid routine in place. So there has been times where my mental health's not been 100%, so I can't work out, you know, where you're just kind of like in a hole, and I'm like, I can't do anything today. And I tell Laura, but like, I'm really sorry, I've just not been feeling it. And she's like, completely understand, have a rest day. She's not like, oh, I'm disappointed in you. She'll just tell me to have a rest. So I only work out from home. I have everything at home anyway, which is quite good because I got it fully collected it during lockdown. But I work out at home. I have set days where I do it because I work from home anyway, so it's not like I'm in a rush or anything, which is quite, you know, like a good thing for myself. If I tell, like in the past, if I've slipped up slightly, I'll just be like, oh, I'm just doing a binge. I've finally learned to understand that going over my calories one day is not going to hurt. It's literally, if I carry on with that mindset where I'm like, oh, never mind, it's fine, I'll just, you know, I'll carry on, I might as well now. You're destroying what I've done previously, but just one day, get back straight on it the next day, absolutely fine. Like, I did my check-in shift this morning, and I knew full well my weight had gone slightly up because of all the food that I ate on Saturday. But I want stressing, I want crying over it. I know why it's like that, and I know full well by next week it'll be back down again.
Exactly. And how is that different to previous, obviously, Slimming Worlds? The entire dictation of weekly progress is that number, isn't it? It's You've lost weight, great work. You haven't, oh dear. With other the experiences that you had, like with the other sort of coaching experiences you have, what was like the measurement of success? So did you do check-ins? How was it assessed? What was discussed?
So we did do check-ins, and my weight, it was kind of similar. So it was like measurements of weight. But because I didn't really have any guidance, nothing was changing. But they were just kind of like, oh yeah, you're doing fine, carry on. And I'm like, okay, but nothing's happening. Am I
Yeah.
doing something wrong? Like, there was nothing there. Whereas with Laura, I can literally message her anytime I want and she'll reply to me. Like, I'll probably do already, but she's she's there and she will give me advice and she'll motivate me to keep going if I've had a slip up. So just be like, don't worry about it, carry on, you've done so well.
Yeah.
It's not 'cause, like, I don't, in terms of like where my head is, I don't really want to concentrate too much on the weight, the measurements. It's kind of just getting that routine in and having a healthier lifestyle rather than just, I need to be this heavy or this light by X amount. It's just more of a, I'm going to be with Laura for a while, so it's a marathon, not sprint. So I'm in
Absolutely.
no rush.
And that's the way to do it. And this is, I think, one of the biggest things that people get wrong is we live in that quick fix mentality society, don't we? Amazon Prime this. I mean, I'm guilty of Amazon Prime for everything. We just want things like tomorrow or yesterday. And when it comes to habits and behaviors, unfortunately, human psychology and human behavior is not an Amazon Prime job. So we can't just rapidly change something. We can't just quickly shift something so deeply ingrained that we need to change with habits and routines, especially when we do have like emotional connections to things. We have emotional connections to food, we have emotional connections to certain other things as well, and it can make it challenging. We get attached to our way of doing things and our routine, and then when you have to change that, you have to start moving your body and working out, it's like, oh no, I quite like just watching Netflix. That was a bit easier. So it's challenging, but this is what we support with, is that changing habits, changing routines, and it's not about how rapid we can get someone a result to throw it on Instagram and be like, yeah, buddy, we're great coaches. It's like, no, we just threw someone on a crash diet, got a picture, and then ditched them. It's not our vibe of mentality at all. Nope. So
Yep.
to finish things, I just want you to wrap up with a couple of bits of advice. So if there are any sort of girls out there listening to this, especially as we come into the new year and they're looking into sort of diets, they're looking into losing weight and maybe a bit lost, maybe they've tried a few things and it's that new year, it's like, well, it's new year, what have I done wrong? I don't want to do another diet and fail this year. I want to see this through. Based off your own experiences, what bits of advice would you give? Maybe what would you not do? What would you do so that they can succeed?
So if people have the money, I would highly recommend getting a coach because you've got that person there that is going to ensure that you're accountable, is going to make sure that you're on track with your calories and basically help you out. But they're not there to click the fingers and do it for you. There is still that willpower and motivation that you need yourself. For people who probably can't maybe afford it or are still a bit on the fence, like even just like starting off with simple calorie counting. So like there's loads of calculators online that you can find that can give you a rough idea. None of this 1200 calorie stuff. None of that. But like just genuinely looking at that and just like making little swaps. So like instead of a yogurt, go to Aldi and get one of those little protein puddings and just keeping your protein uptake a little bit and going for a walk on your lunch break. Just really little things can make a big difference. Like walking is so underrated. Like
absolutely, just general day-to-day movement. And what you said,
yes.
very spot on. It's small changes, not drastic changes. Everyone in the new year tries to do everything, right? I'm going to go to the gym every day. I'm going to eat nothing but chicken and lettuce. I'm going to go and do all of these big steps and try and just turn your life 360. Well, that's not going to be sustainable. It's the little change, like you said. So instead of this, have that. Just move a little bit more. Make little swaps. Make little adjustments. Focus on one thing at a time. Get good at it. Make it feel normal and natural. And then move on to the next thing. And that's what we help people with. Like, I wouldn't tell someone brand new to go to the gym every day and track their calories and their protein and do 10,000 steps and take this supplement and make sure your sleep is optimized and make whoa, one thing at a time. So would you say that the nutrition is the biggest thing that people should start with?
Yeah, I'd say food is, it all depends on your background though, because I know that if you've struggled in terms of like food relationships, it's probably just like I said, start small. Don't just go dive in and just be like, right, all I'm gonna eat is, like you said, chicken or lettuce and fruit or whatever. But
As long as
just
it's not
making,
blended.
yeah, just like small swaps. So like instead of using a load of vegetable oil, just use some fry light for cooking, or putting a little bit more veg on your plate with whatever you're having. So like, say if you get some chicken strips, and obviously they're not super healthy, but just putting a lot of veg on there as well, rather than just chicken and chips, just some veg,
Exactly.
and like just little things like that.
Absolutely. Really useful and helpful. So we'll wrap this one up here, but thank you so much for sharing that, Emily. It's been lovely to share your insight into your own experiences, and I hope people who've listened to this as well have found this beneficial and useful as well, because like I say, it's great for me to preach it, but this is my job. But to hear it from real people, and to hear what Emily's had to say has been fantastic. So thank you so much for your time, Emily. I will leave Emily's Instagram handle in the show notes. Is that okay, Emily, in case people have listened to this and maybe want to ask you a
Yeah,
question?
that's fine.
You know, you're going to get spams now. Slimming World. How dare
Do
you?
not want to join Slimming World.
You get DMs. Hey, follow Emily. Do you want to do Slimming World? No.
Block.
No, I will leave her Instagram just in case you have listened to this and think, you know what, I'd quite like to speak to someone who maybe is on my level more. And, you know, if you want to ask Emily any questions about her experiences and what she's done, I'm sure she'll be happy to answer. But thank you so much, Emily, and thank you to everybody who's listened. Over and out for this week, and I'll catch you on next week's episode.